Hi everyone, welcome. Today I have Peter Spinder here from Molesco. We're talking everything digital transformation. So digital transformation comes in a whole bunch of different flavors. Some businesses just think it's, oh, I'm going to turn on a marketing strategy or something, but it's so much more than that. So today we're going to talk through a little bit of those definitions. What causes transformation to fail in some instances, and also to set up some success points to really help you deliver your digital transformation within your business in the most effective way. Welcome today, Pete. It's great
Thanks,
to
Jason.
see you.
Much appreciated.
You know, we've been working together on and off for the last sort of 10 years,
Quite a
I
long
guess,
time, yeah.
quite a while. And between us, we've got sort of 20 odd, I've got 20 years, you're probably the same, 20 years. So yeah, lots of war wounds to share. So in your experience, what is digital transformation, and how does that really come into taking a business from 2021 to 2025?
Good question. And the really interesting thing is that when we're talking about digital transformation, people get to, they have a tendency of sticking with that word digital. And as soon as they think digital, they see digital and they assume it's all digital. And nothing could actually be further from the truth. The reality is that digital transformation is simply a process of using technology as an enabler to better what you do as an organization and to deliver better value to your stakeholders, which includes owners, management, your staff, your customers, and the greater community itself. So really it's a process of improving a business using technology with the people in mind.
Yeah. We've seen transformation be really big, like whole full systems,
Yep.
Which can be obviously the most challenging to implement, but also in a smaller way, bolting on smaller elements of tech that can really make a big difference.
Correct.
There's just so many examples of that in different flavors, learning systems, payment systems, integration with inventory and all that sort of thing.
And the other thing is that everyone, when you talk about transformation, and certainly if you think of it from an academic point of view, transformation usually means a complete change in something. But in fact, digital transformation, as you said, could just be a micro change within an organization. It could just be a slightly different way that you're processing a payment, for example, or a different way that you handle a customer inquiry, as it been, instead of having a fax, for example, or someone filling in a form and sending it via email. The transformation could be a digital form which shoots it into a CRM, which shoots it into Xero, for example, and that helps you with the process. So transformation itself can be as big as you want it to be, but the key thing is that it's the person in the middle that matters the most. There's no point in the technology if it doesn't make the person's life a lot easier. If it pisses your staff off, you're going to have a lot of problems.
Yeah. So that transformation, what causes transformation to fail? And usually it's about people in our experience.
It's
so many different things.
I had to say that often it's the client who's at fault, but look, the reality is that transformation most often fails because of either the expectation that I'm going to get something or that the process will look like something, or it fails simply because people don't realize how much commitment they need to make to the actual process itself. But we'll touch base on each of these in a little bit more detail.
Yeah. I've had projects get right to the end game of being pretty much done, and then it fails in testing because no one has allocated time to actually do that testing, or they've just lost the motivation. The owner's distracted by the other shiny thing over in the corner.
There's another pretty butterfly.
There's another pretty thing over there, and it's just like, oh no, I'm going to do that now. Oh, but you've just sunk $100,000 into this project. Don't you want to deliver it? And it just doesn't happen. So there's so many varying causes. Have you got any war wounds that you'd like to share with us?
Lots of war wounds. Probably the other thing that I'd add to, just before we go to the war wounds, add to that discussion of what causes failure. One of the big reasons that projects fail and transformation fails is because we don't actually stick to a plan. And in fact, oftentimes there is no plan. A client will come and say, hey, I saw such and such use such and such. I want that in my business. And it doesn't work that way because you need to understand that every organization is different. Every person is different. And so your needs are different to their needs. And so unless there's a proper planned approach, unless there's a strategy in place, unless we have proper process of reviewing what you do, the current state, understanding the future state, where you want to go, mapping against that, selecting the right system, and then working with the right partners, it just doesn't work. That's the reality.
So you're saying that really planning is at the core of what
Planning is critical. So if we look at the cost of a transformation project as being 100%, I would probably say good 30 to 40% of that money should actually go into the pre-implementation stage, which is your planning stage. And some people might think, wow, that's just over the top. But remember that if you get it right in the planning, and if you address everything and you've got the right structure in place, then when you go into implementation and when you build it, then you've got the right rigor to know, okay, this is what we should be expecting. These are the requirements that we should be building. So the development agency, if it's a build, they know exactly what they need to deliver. And then when you go to test, you know exactly what should be working, what to test, how to test it, and what to look for. So therefore, long term, you minimize wasting money and you actually speed up the project itself.
Yeah, absolutely. I've seen, some transformation. One of the first projects I worked on was this internal calendar, and that was 20 years ago. And the CEO of the business took me aside and said, "Hey, we're going to change this whole process. Don't tell anyone we're going to do it, and we're just going to launch this thing in 4 months, and everyone will be happy." And it was the most bizarre experience that I've ever undertaken. The person that manages the existing incumbent system didn't even know that we were actually going through this. It had disaster written all over it, but it kind of worked. And I don't really. I think it came down to the leadership and driver of the person driving the project. She was absolutely 3,000% committed to making this happen. And I think we did other projects in that business over the years that didn't have that drive, and they took much longer to implement because it didn't have the whole team on board. It was a really interesting dynamic. It can't happen, I don't think, today in that sort of way. Maybe it doesn't. But the implementation, the transformation was successful. There was a bit of pain and a bit of a few people quite upset at the time for not knowing, but then they were on board with the efficiencies and the automation that came along with this system. So it was happy days at the end of it. It was their life was easier.
I mean, I think what worked there is the fact that the leader was the one that was driving it, and they were happy to push forward. So if I think of two projects over the past few years, one has been an insane success, and the other one was insane failure. Very similar industry, very similar technology stack, very similar business processes. One succeeded, one failed. And why that happened was quite simple. In one hand, the one that succeeded, the business owner, is just still to this day so committed, and we've actually just gone through their second transformation project, and they're so committed and dedicated to the project. Their expectations are aligned. They know exactly what needs to be done, and they know what to expect, and it just works. In the other project, and this is back in the day when I was still very sort of fresh behind the ears in terms of the transformation side of things, the business owner just wasn't committed enough. They passed off everything to someone else within the business, a subordinate, even though I said to them, look, you need to understand it. No, we don't need to. And guess what happened? Shit hit the fan, and the thing actually didn't work in the end. And the entire project imploded, 50,000 plus later. These sort of things happen. So
that's still leadership, though, isn't it? So
it is, and it comes back to leadership. The staff in the business actually wanted it, but it was the leader that wasn't driving it in the right direction. And when the leader's not driving it, everyone else sits back and goes, well, it mustn't be that important to the business, so we're not going to bother with it. And of course, they didn't adopt it, and to this day, they don't use it.
Yeah.
So
one of the other projects we that experienced some difficulty getting to the finish line was due to just a large amount of data and the inability of that data to be transferred. Actually, that's happened on several. Now I reflect. I've got about 3 or 4 in my head of app style dev, fairly significant transformation for the business. That might have made it to the end, but not kind of in the way that we would have liked to have made it. And it all came down to the complexity of data. What's your experience with that?
So I've got one project at the moment that is going live in about 2 months' time, and it's been almost a year and a half. And the thing that's held us up has been the data. Yeah. Previous projects we've had, the data has been a big problem for us. And so what we now do is when we go through our transformation process and we're looking at business readiness assessment and we're analyzing, okay, well, what does their data set look like? Right from the beginning, we task the business owner, we mandate that they structure their data and start working on their data right from day one.
Yeah.
And we find that by doing it that way, and we force them to do it that way,
Yes.
we actually have a better outcome, because there's nothing worse than spend huge amounts of time consulting, project mapping, developing things, and then you get to the point where the data's ready to be input and the business has got nothing.
Miles behind.
Miles behind. And then you're waiting for months and months and months, and it just yeah.
So you're suggesting get your data prepped
right now.
right now. Like if you're thinking about change, what does your data look like?
Correct.
Is it ready for change?
Correct. So if you're looking at any sort of change, first thing that I'd recommend is start with your strategy. If you don't have an org strategy, you should develop one first, because you need to understand where you want to go with the technology. Then what you need to do is you need to look at the current state, look at where you want to go, and as part of where you want to go, you need to understand what data do you need to get there, and what data do you have available.
Yeah.
And if your data is all over the place, like it is with many organizations, then start cleaning it up from day one. Don't wait till the developer says, okay, we're ready to test.
Yeah. That's us waiting for the data. Pete has this process around digital transformation that I will overlay over the screen as you're watching right now. Do you want to have a quick chat about that, Peter?
Yeah. So as with many things in life, if you follow a process that works and that has been tried and tested, then you're in a better position to succeed with that activity. Now, it's not a guarantee that things will work, but as I said before, where we should start is always from a strategic perspective. Where do you want to go as an organisation? What's the current state? What's the future state going to look like? And then from there, we can then look at, well, what are the solutions that exist to fulfill any of the pain points or meet the needs that you've got from a strategic perspective. Now, often what happens is we have three options. We can go full stack, full steam ahead with these massive things. Quite often not the right approach. We've got partial solutions where we might take bits and pieces, or we might actually have stage solutions where we say, okay, we're going to roll out the whole thing, but we're going to do it over 3 stages over 2 years, for example. Once we've done that, that's when I'd recommend we conduct what's called a business readiness assessment, because you might have the money, you might have the time, but guess what? You're the wrong business for that type of technology now.
Yeah. Well, the market's not ready.
Well, the market's not ready, exactly.
Yeah.
So we need to make sure that what we're looking to do, you're ready, your staff are ready, the market environment is ready for it. And if things line up there, then we go to the next step, which is requirements gathering. So we work out and understand through interview process and workshops, what exactly is it that you're wanting from this thing?
Yep.
We then develop scoping documentation, which tells the agencies and developers, whoever it is, this is what we're wanting. And it's the scoping document that we use to generate quotes and understand how complex things are going to be. Once we've got that done, we discuss, we validate, we get the approvals from the business owner, and then implementation can start. So select the agencies and away we go. And within the implementation stack, there's a whole raft of activities, things like project management, testing, internal change management, systems training, so many other factors that we have to put in place to make sure that when the technology is ready, your business is ready, the technology is ready, the data's ready, the market's ready, and we can all move forward in unison, as opposed to what we've seen many times over the years. It falls apart at the last minute for
sometimes because people.
Yeah,
tech can work, and people. At a small scale transformation, worked with a startup that was moving through to a more mature stage and didn't have any systems. So they chose to move into a full cloud-based CRM with some process workflow automation. And the trouble was the business was built on people who are free and easy environment. They don't want to fill in technical workflow steps in their day-to-day. They're just not programmed like that. So it is a real change management process that you may need some change management specialists in doing coaching, doing training, working with your team, sitting down with your team and talking through those issues. It may be just not you need to do this now. It's what you're doing today is going to help your other teammates be able to, expand and grow the business, and therefore the whole organisation grows. I think it's, for small businesses particularly, because resourcing is so stretched, everyone's trying to do everything for everyone, that it can be really challenging. Now, today, Pete's also come up with the 6 success tips that to help. And we've probably talked about some of those already, but we'll throw to this graphic here, and we'll talk through a few of those things just to make sure we haven't missed anything, I guess. So where do you want to start?
Start up the top. Number one advice is don't do this alone. That's why we have jobs as consultants and as advisors, is because this is what we specialize in. And the reality is that this is quite complicated. You're good at what you do in the business. You don't need to wear every single hat. And I always say that to business owners. I think often people work too many hours doing silly things that they shouldn't do. So don't do this alone, because with the right partners, you can be very successful.
So and that's part of the planning, isn't it?
Yeah.
Like just work on your resourcing and go, okay, well, this month I really need a planning team and the right people that are going to know the journey or have been down this path before. And know the issues and timings and all that sort of thing.
But the other aspect to it is that when it comes to going alone, it's not just about bringing externals in, it's also about being open and transparent with your team. So if we're talking about a new project, I'd be saying to you, bring your team in from day one. Even get them involved at the strategy level. Yeah. Because if your team are there, they'll buy in, and I can guarantee you, your receptionist probably knows your business better than you do, because they're right at the front, and they see the problems and the challenges, and they hear the complaints and issues and things like that.
Yeah.
So don't do it alone. Involve your team. Get professionals involved. Take the time to plan. Which we've talked about. Do not rush the initial component. I can't stress that enough. Do not rush. And I've got one project at the moment where the business owner decided that they wanted to skip the steps, and they decided to rush. And they've lost about 9 months worth of time as a result, because they ended up going down the wrong path, doing the wrong things. We've had to unravel all of that. Many tens of thousands of dollars of money just gone to the fairies. And we've had to start all over again. And guess what? We've now got a plan in place, and it's actually working. And that's just how it is sometimes.
So third one is stakeholders. And that's, as an example of my first experience, was the key stakeholders actually weren't involved in the project. And it leads to some really high-level discontent. In another project that flowed through big system dev, as the site goes, or as the system went live, we had people leaving in the business that had all the knowledge, only because they were scared of their job being actually not being available anymore because of the system, the automation was going. But if they had have engaged in the process and engaged in the learnings, they could have taken their skill set to a whole other level dealing with this new tech. Tech's going to happen. You got to jump on board sometimes.
You do. Yeah. That example that I gave before, where the business owner, the two examples, success and failure, where it failed. In fact, what happened internally there is that the person who was the champion ended up leaving within a week of going live with the system, and they knew everything. When they left, everything was up in chaos.
Yeah.
The other reason, from a stakeholder point of view, this is really important, is because often within businesses we have layers of management, and you need to make sure as a business owner that, yes, just because it's your business doesn't mean that everyone will happily do as you ask them to do. And in fact, productivity can go down if you force people to do things that they don't agree with, or they haven't been involved in, really importantly. So it's really critical that any key managers and people who are important are actually involved. Otherwise, you're just digging yourself a hole, unfortunately.
Yeah. Let's have a look at this one. The big dollar number, the budget.
Reality and time frame. Clients, I had one client yesterday text me, and if you're watching this, I hope you don't mind me saying it. I won't say who this is, but text me, ask me, how long is this going to take? And unfortunately, sometimes the response is, how long's that piece of string? Because sometimes we just can't estimate things coming up. Things just happen in the world, and that just blow things out of proportion. So from an expectation point of view, you've got to be realistic with 3 things. be realistic with the money. It will cost more money than what you initially think it will. Number two, it will take more time than what you think it will. And number three, it will be harder than what you think it will be harder. And that's the reality.
That is, yeah, absolutely. There's curveballs at every corner. There's complexity that when you, especially larger scale transformation, when you're dealing with multiple systems, automation, APIs, all that sort of technical thing, that just takes time.
It's incredible. One big project we're almost finished with at the moment. We were thrown a curveball probably 6 months ago when software vendor said to us, when we first looked at them a year ago, they said, yeah, it can do this, this, and this, and we gave them scoping. Yeah, everything signed off. 6 months ago, when we go and test that functionality, guess what?
Doesn't
it wasn't
exist.
quite how it works. And so we've spent the past quite a few months looking at different options, and we ended up having to go down a custom code path, which then affected the amount of money, it's affected the time, it's caused people to be a little bit disgruntled internally. Nothing that we could have done, unfortunately. You can't always trust what people say. That's just...
Yeah, that's the risks of doing transformation, isn't it? Usually it can be all simple and straightforward in some cases, but sometimes there's just a massive level of complexity. Hopefully the partners that you're working with can sort of preempt some of that and prepare you for that journey.
That's where this comes in. So when we do planning, when we're undertaking digital transformation projects, we always develop a plan for the transformation, and part of the planning process is risk mitigation. So every single project that we run, we always run through a risk exercise.
Yeah.
We do full risk mapping. We look at, okay, well, what are the risks currently? What are the risks that may come up? What are the risks that are just random that we're just going to bring in? COVID, for example, who would have thought a year ago that we'd be standing here talking about such a business landscape? So you always run your risk exercise, and then every month, whenever we're engaging with the client in the transformation, we rerun our risk exercise and the risk matrix and re-review risks, analysing risk scores. And I always ask the dev team in particular, okay, team, do you foresee any risks coming up from a coding point of view? Any API conflicts, any issues? Business owner, we always ask, do you foresee any staffing risks coming up? Have you got staff that are unhappy at the moment with the process? If we do, guess what? We sit down with them, we work it out straight away. We don't leave it a year and let it fester.
Yeah. Change management, isn't it? Yeah. Okay, be engaged. You know, this is a big one, and we spoke about it earlier. We've already talked about it a lot. Keeping that momentum.
Yes.
Quite often for us, it's the 80-20 rule. The most work happens in the last part of that last 20%. There's a lot to go through. From a development perspective, it can be quite buggy, frustrating. You want to kill your developer. You want to turn everything off. You want to shut your business down. But then there's light at the end of the tunnel, and it all starts working, and it's all really cool. But throughout that process, it requires engagement.
Yeah.
If you're really disconnected from that, it just goes nowhere. Developers start working on other projects. They're just not into it. They lose momentum as well. I think for us, it's about shortening those communications loops.
Very much so. And it actually, what we're talking about here, if we want to get technical, is an agile methodology where we bring agile project management methodology into the way that we run our businesses and the way that transformation happens. And we have an agile method of business management. And what that means is that you're hands-on, you're engaged. And from a transformation point of view, there's nothing worse than a disengaged leader who then 6 months into it comes in and says, oh, I thought it was going to do this, or I thought it was going to work that way. And you think, hang on a second, haven't you been part of the cycle and watching the iterations and doing the testing, and then you find that they haven't done anything?
Yeah. Or another one is like the testing team actually aren't testing.
Yeah.
So the clients, you go to user acceptance testing and the users aren't actually testing, and they come back, it's all good. And then okay, we're ready to go live. Yep, go live. All these issues. We can't go live yet. Well,
hang on a second.
Did
you sign off on that?
And I know. I think it's just human behaviour not to really engage in something until there's going to be real change, or there's real just real change.
Just
I've got to change tomorrow, so therefore I better look at it tonight. It's like prepping for these type of videos. I probably should prep a little bit earlier, but I don't. I just, we make it all happen at the last minute. Yeah, that's right.
But with that engagement comes the next one, which the two of them go hand in hand. If you're running digital transformation or you're about to embark on it, my massive recommendation, you need an internal project champion. It's as simple as that. You need somebody that the external vendors and partners and whoever else is involved can work with. One person who's empowered to do what they need to do for the project. And if it means spending 5 hours a day for the next 2 weeks, then it means spending 5 hours a day for the next 2 weeks. And
I've seen that work really well.
Critical component. So what we do now as a consultancy is we either become the internal project champions on behalf of our clients and liaise with the agencies, or we help our clients train up someone internally to be a project champion.
In my experience, it's there's a caveat that the champion needs to be someone in the business that is actually respected.
Yes.
And has gone through some war wounds themselves and has an optimistic outlook on life. So they're championing the change, but they're also helping those less resilient to change to actually push through, helping them through.
Good point. And that's part of change management. So they actually help, baby the rest of the team and bring them along and pat them on the back when the team's down and thinking, oh, this whole universe is falling apart. Just because our buttons move from here to here and it's a different way of doing things. So.
Don't sweat the small stuff. I have that on my notes. Do not sweat the small stuff.
Yes.
Anyway.
Have that focus.
So we have reached the final 6. That's been an amazing journey, Pete. Thanks very much.
Thank you for the time.
For coming along.
I really hope we haven't scared people off this, because I'll tell you one thing from experience is that when you get this right and when we do it well, it is incredible what it does for an organisation.
Yeah.
You end up making more money, your staff are happier, your customers are more happier, you get your weekends back. I've got cases where the business owner, after the transformation, was able to take holidays with their family. We're talking 2 weeks away from your business, and it doesn't fall apart.
Yeah.
You can go home for dinner.
That's the whole transformational thing, isn't it?
It is.
When it comes to life and finally makes a difference in the business, it can really change lives. And it's not just the bottom line. It's about people.
It's about people, and if we think about it from a customer point of view, if a transformation adds value to the customer's journey and experience with your company, guess what they're going to do? They'll spend more money with you. You don't need to spend more money on marketing. All you need to do is provide a better service, better value, and you will see your business revenue go up.
Yeah. Now, if you've had experience with digital transformation, want to share some of those tips and tricks, or maybe some war wounds, don't hesitate to comment in the comments below, and subscribe to our channel. Like us and visit Malesko for that planning and digital strategy to drive. And we're always here, as always, for dev and bringing that strategy to life.
Fantastic.
So thanks very much, and we'll talk very soon.
Thanks, Jason. Thank you.